Hey everybody, welcome to Post to Post. My name's Neil, joined here with my dad, aka Brent, aka The GOAT, a longtime co-host of the channel, but not so much in the past 2 or so years because I moved from PEI, where we're filming now, to where I live now, which is New Brunswick. 4-hour drive, COVID, we've not seen each other very often. But we used to do a side podcast called Having a Yak, where we literally talked about anything. Like, the channel's primarily hockey related, obviously, but we really talked about everything under the sun. It's conspiracy theories, other sports, traveling, geography, like
life,
literally everything. People even wrote in with their problems once and asked us to like dissect and give feedback.
Oh dear.
So that's kind of what this is. We're not necessarily reviving Having a Yak, but we wanted to do it again. We wanted to have a chat that's maybe not so much serious sports related or anything like that. So I come up with the idea that maybe we would talk about our pet peeves, maybe top 10 or something like that. Did you make that list?
I didn't.
Great. Well, you can banter off mine.
All right.
Now,
They should be fairly similar.
I'm sure that they are. As you can tell, we are filming in an interrogation studio. We're just in the basement here, and it was just gutted and sprayed and insulated and finished and whatnot. So we are not actually interrogating anyone, but it does look like that.
What kind of questions are you going to ask me?
Okay, I've got 10, okay?
Right.
And I don't think any of these apply to you. And by that, I mean, I don't think any of these attributes that you have that annoy me,
okay.
Except for the first one.
Oh.
I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I think you already know about it.
Here comes the wheels.
So here are my top 10 pet peeves. I'm sure there are others as well. I just couldn't think of them. Okay, number 1, loud eating. You have a trait, and it's not just you, but I've noticed it from you.
Right.
We talked about this before.
Right.
You tend to eat loudly. It sounds like a rainforest. It sounds like 2 naked gorillas wrestling in a rainforest when you eat. And
Wow.
Yeah. And that's not really on you. That's on me. I don't even know the right word to describe. It's not a hatred.
It's an aversion.
An aversion. I just have a serious aversion to mouthly sounds when it involves eating.
I don't know what I can do about that. I have had some good dental work recently. That might calm things down.
That's true,
You never know.
More specifically to that is people who eat with their mouth open.
Oh, yeah.
That's not something that you do. No. But I know some people who do it, and it is incredibly annoying. So if I could change anything about anyone that I know that eats with their mouth open, that would be it. Like it's just one of those things that drives me nuts. Sometimes I have to remove myself from rooms because it bothers me that much. I wish it didn't, but it does. So that's one of my pet peeves.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you have any mouthly annoyances?
Not so much with eating. I do notice how people carry their mouths.
Carry their mouths.
You're going to catch a fly, kind of.
Mouth breathers.
Yeah, like their mouth is just hanging open, and they don't even know that it's hanging open. And one thing I hope I'm in control. I try to be in control of most of my body most of the time, and my mouth is one of those things. I don't have my mouth hanging open, but a lot of people do. They breathe through their mouths. Maybe they have a sinus condition. I'm not saying that there's not a good reason for some to do that, but some people just don't know. They're off in a planet somewhere.
I agree.
You're in a waiting room and there's some doofus in the corner, just looking up at the ceiling and his mouth is hanging open. Yeah. And there's no need of that.
I'm the opposite of that when it comes to sleep. I can't sleep with my mouth open.
I don't think I can.
I literally cannot fall asleep if my mouth is open. It has to be closed. And so it's very difficult to sleep when I'm sick. But
okay.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, thing number 2 for me, and we're going to share this, slow drivers. And it's not even necessarily, like if you're doing, the speed limit here in town is 50 for the most part. If you're doing 45, that's a little bit of an annoyance, but not really a big deal. To me, it's the people who, if there's 2 lanes and you're going slow in the fast lane, that's what really bothers me. Like, what are you doing? move over, as the signs say, keep right, except to pass. What are you doing? Like, get out of that left lane. And so that's really my specific annoyance there, is people who drive slow in the fast lane. But I know we share that one.
We do. As I get older and a little more calm, I try to think of reasons why they would be going slow. And one of the things that I believed for most of my adult life as a driver was that if the speed limit sign said 55, then that means everybody's supposed to drive 55. And if someone's driving 40 or 45, then I used to be upset because they weren't driving 55.
Right.
And then my other brain kicked in later on and said 55 is the maximum you're allowed to drive. It's not the only speed you're supposed to be driving.
I guess.
So it's a maximum. And now in some places, like if you're in a big interstate in the U.S., you'll see maximum 70, minimum 45.
You can get fined for driving too slow because it's a danger.
As you should.
Yeah.
You should be fined for that. So there are places where you do have a minimum speed, but in most highway traffic legislation, it's very loose as to what that is.
Yeah.
So,
I typically here in Canada, if it's 80, I'm doing 90. If it's 110, I'm doing 120.
now we're talking kilometers per hour now. So 110 is about 70 miles an hour. So yeah, we don't drive like crazy people. Well, I guess we do sometimes, but it's not as bad as it sounds.
I will say that I think I'm going to argue a little bit against your point where, there's a maximum. And I think in town, that's fine. But we'll say it's 80 or 90. And you're outside of town, and maybe you're in farm country or something. It doesn't really matter. But you come across someone doing 70 and an 80. You just want to go the speed limit. You just want to go 80, but you can't. Yeah. And maybe there's lots of turns and stuff. You can't quite find somewhere to turn. And then someone else comes up from behind you, and they're annoyed. And then boom, 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 it snowballs. There's 6 cars in line. The 6th car is like, what's going on? And they want to pass, and it becomes dangerous, all because the first person isn't going the speed limit. So I think that driving slow in certain situations can be as dangerous as driving fast.
Absolutely.
Because it forces irrational decisions from other drivers.
Yeah. Any driver that's decided consciously to not go the speed limit, which is the legal speed that others can drive, should, the minute it's safe to do so, pull over and let everybody else go by.
Totally agree.
And then pull back on again. Because obviously they're not in a hurry to get where they're going.
Yeah.
And they're probably old. They're probably, I don't know, I won't say anything else, but they're probably old.
Yes.
And they're probably not comfortable driving at a high rate of speed like they would have been when they were younger.
And that's totally understandable. And I think that's great that if you're later in life and you're still, driving your own vehicle, that's great. But if you can't drive the speed limit because of your inability to feel safe, don't drive the vehicle at all. And that's my opinion.
This is part of the pet peeve, I think, that you might agree with. When you're driving along and you're fairly well spaced out from the car ahead of you, and then somebody pulls in or pulls out in front of you, and you're just doing the speed limit, if they're doing it right, you should not catch them.
Yeah, exactly.
So they should either not pull out because there's not enough time to do it, or they should pull out and accelerate to the extent that you won't catch them.
100%.
So that's a big one for me, especially where we live, where there's a lot of streets coming out onto the main road.
Yep.
And there's just, especially in the morning, there's people just, the minute they see even the slightest little hole, they'll jump out in it. But then they'll go slow. They won't speed up.
I got something worse for you. Remember the video that I sent you, I think it was the beginning of last year, the beginning of 2021 or ish. I was doing 80, just left work on that road, doing 80, and then someone pulled out in front of me, not like right out in front of me, but pulled out, and then immediately stopped to turn left to go onto the road. So I gave them the finger. I've got this all on dash cam. I was going to make a video about it, but I decided not to just because the guy's face is in it. But I gave him the finger, okay? Because it's like, what are you doing? And I literally had to come to a stop. He could have waited 7 seconds and gone out after I went by, totally fine. But he was a jerk, decided to make me, stop. He's stupid. So I gave him the finger. He stopped his vehicle in the middle of the road, got out of the vehicle, walked back to my vehicle, banging on my window, calling me names, swearing at me, and threatening me. I noticed as I passed where he pulled out of that it was a mental health institution. So I did not engage this person after he left his vehicle. So I just let him do his thing, get back in his vehicle, and eventually he left. But yeah, to your point, that definitely happens where people pull up in front of you when maybe they should wait, or maybe they don't get up to speed in time, or whatever.
I don't do the finger typically. I might in response, but I would never initiate the finger.
Yeah.
But what I do gestures. I go like, what was that? You know, the two hands. This probably comes from my dad driving in Montreal all of his life, and me watching him just like marveling at the idiots that he was encountering back then. So I will do something like this, or, you know, what were you thinking? Tapping my head.
Use your head.
Yeah, use your head. So I'll make gestures, not rude gestures necessarily, but they should know, if they're paying any attention at all, that they have displeased me.
Yeah, I rarely give the finger. I would say maybe 3-4 times a year at absolute most. Once a quarter.
Oh, it's November. My finger quota's used up. What'll I do instead?
My favorite thing to do is the old chin brush.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes,
that's good.
What are you doing? So that's what I usually do, just for the comedy relief. But yeah. Number 2, slow drivers.
Yep.
Or idiotic drivers.
They can be dangerous.
That's a long conversation that we could have had right there.
Yep.
But number 3. All right, this 100% bugs you, like to a T. People who leave carts in the middle of the aisle and then walk somewhere else to get something.
Oh.
Like, that is an extreme offense.
Don't get me started.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Like, just be courteous of the rest of the shoppers. Put your cart off to the side. If you need to go somewhere, ideally take your cart with you. But if you have to run off and grab something, that's fine. But just make sure your cart's out of the way. This
all boils down to what I call, not just me, but what they call situational awareness.
Yes.
Being aware of a 360-degree radius around you of what's going on, and then try to act accordingly to make society work as well as possible.
Exactly.
It's that simple. That's what makes you hold doors open for people that are right behind you going into the store or coming out. That's what makes you take your shopping cart over to one side so people can get by. It's all about just knowing what's going on around you and doing little things. They don't have to be big things. Little things just to make everyone else's day a little bit better.
Exactly. You don't want to be inconvenience anyone. You want to be courteous. It's the same if you run into someone that you know at the store and you have to strike up a conversation with them. Move to the side just so people can get by. You're going to be standing there for a couple of minutes or whatever, catching up, and that's fine. It's great to run into people, but just make sure you're not in the way of everyone else. Because everyone else, they're busy. They're in there trying to get something real quick, go home to their families and whatnot. Maybe they're just on their lunch break. They only have a limited amount of time. You should not inconvenience them. So very, very conscious of that.
And if you're in line to go to the checkout and you have a full grocery cart, and I see this a lot. A lot of people are good about this. 100%. They'll see someone coming behind, they just have a quart of milk and a loaf of bread, and that's all they got. Go ahead.
All the time.
Get in front of me. Get out of here before you're stuck behind me for next 10 to 15 minutes, because here's the other thing. If you're stuck behind me, I guarantee you there's going to be a price check on aisle 4 of something I bought that it doesn't scan right.
That happens to you?
Oh, yeah.
That never happens to me.
Yeah, it happens. It's not as much nowadays with barcodes and that kind of stuff because it's usually in the system.
What do you mean not as much these days with barcodes? How did they price things before?
Well, they would actually put a sticker on the thing with the price on it.
And they have to...
And the thing would fall off, or, there would actually be no price tag on the item that you're buying.
So hypothetically, if you bought a banana, we'll say it was 15 cents back in 1940s when you grew up.
Right.
So you take the banana, 15 cents, you would key in 0.15 and then put the banana. You wouldn't have to put in a code or anything. How did you calculate without barcodes?
Oh my goodness! How did we survive?
Was it all manual?
Well,
I have so many questions.
You used a bad example in a banana because they're all sold by weight.
Okay,
so you put the banana on the scale and the weight per pound.
A box of Cheez-Its.
Okay, a box of Cheez-Its. It may not have a price on the box. Mm-hmm. You would have to stop.
But if there was a price, there is no barcode in this world that used to be.
Right.
But there's a price on a little tag. Mm-hmm. The cashier keys in the price. They don't track the inventory or nothing?
Back in the day, I used to run a cash register back in the 70s, and you didn't have, all the items you sold in the store had SKUs, size, kind, and unit, that abbreviation. So it had a number, but the number wasn't necessarily on the product or on the shelf. It was just in your own internal record keeping.
Okay.
So when that made it to the cash register is an old The first one we started with, it was electric, but it was mechanical. You know, jig, 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 jig. And it had a crank that went in the side of it if you had a power failure.
What?
So I know
No way.
I know that makes me sound really, really old.
Yeah, it
But it had a crank in it. And sometimes we needed it. We needed to have it, use that crank because we didn't want to close the store just because the power was off. But it didn't do inventory tracking. So all we cared about was that the price on the item was accurately inputted into the till and that the right change was made, and everyone paid with cash back then, hardly any credit cards.
Okay, so you had an inventory on paper, certainly.
Yeah.
How did you know when to restock something other than walking around and looking to see if you needed to restock?
You walked around and you looked.
That was it.
That was it.
Interesting.
And in fact, and even to this day, some stores still do a physical inventory, but they do it with barcoding. So they have like a Telzon scanner.
Very common, once a year at least.
Yeah. So what we used to do in the store, every year we would close down the whole store during a work day, like a Tuesday.
That's still common now, actually.
Yeah, usually the first day of the new year or your new fiscal year. And you'd close the store down and you would have your staff report and they would count everything and they'd write it down.
So throughout the year, when you were constantly checking inventory levels and you had to do ordering and stuff, was that a responsibility of an owner like yourself or like a manager, or was there a specific person hired for inventory?
Each of our staff had departments. So somebody might be in charge of all the toys, all the greeting cards, and maybe all the needle and thread. That would be their department. And then they would be responsible for making sure that when we were low on something, middle year, between inventories, that we would reorder.
That's interesting. I mean, it literally all makes sense in every aspect. I guess, my brain is just so used to, I didn't even consider what life was like before barcodes and electronic inventory and stuff. So
here's something that speaking of barcodes, I think would be smart, is that if every cash register in a store had a beep of a slightly different frequency.
Okay.
Because there are times, let's say, when the cashier scans an item or thinks they scanned an item, they hear a beep.
Yeah.
But that's a beep from the cash register behind them. So either the item didn't scan or maybe scanned twice or whatever. But if every cash register had a slightly different frequency of tone, then you would get used to your cash register's beep noise and you wouldn't be distracted or
that's true.
Confused by exactly the same beep next door.
That's actually a very good point. Never thought of that. I'm going to add a pet peeve, an impromptu pet peeve right now.
All right.
What did I do?
What did I do?
It's not you.
Okay.
People who have loud ringtones or text tones in person, when they have their phone in their hand, they know they're talking to someone, they know they're getting notifications, yet they still allow their phone to make a bunch of noise for no reason in public.
Yeah.
That's another pet peeve.
Yeah.
The dinging of the products just made me think of that.
I've been around, of course, for the advent of cell phones from the time that they were big shoe-sized, brick things, till the time that they're now these little flat phones and whatever. But when I started traveling a lot for work in 2007, flying all across the country, basically every week I'm in an airport somewhere. And we flew so much that we got a lot of points, and because of all the points we had, we could go into the Maple Leaf Lounge in Air Canada, for instance. Every time I was in the Maple Leaf Lounge, within a couple of seats of me, there's always some ding-dong on their phone calling anybody. They don't care because they want to tell them that they're in the lounge.
Yeah, guess where I am?
Yeah.
Jeez. That's funny.
Shut up.
All right, let's move on to my next one. Number 4, close talkers. I despise close talkers.
I don't see much. Well, of course, with COVID, there's a lot less now.
This is probably a pre-COVID pet peeve for sure.
Yeah, I don't care for close talk. I'll back up. And if I need to, I'll put a barrier between me and the talker.
100%. I am not afraid of offending someone.
Yeah. I'll go around a piece of furniture or something to get away from the close talker. But I never saw it a whole lot. Really? I definitely don't like it, but I don't think it was something I obsessed about.
I have something even better than that, actually. So I used to work with someone not too long ago that had to be in the eyesight. It had to be a close talker and within your eyesight or eye, whatever. So we're talking, whatever, you're close already and I'm uncomfortable. I've stepped back a couple of times. The person's gotten a little bit closer and I'm trying to disengage. So I'm continuing to talk, but maybe I just I'll look like this way and I'm just thinking or whatever. They'll move to where my head is pointed. And if I come back like this, they'll step like this and come back there.
They're tracking you.
I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's creepy. I did not like that.
The way to fool them is to look up.
Yeah, look up. They just get on their tiptoes.
Climb the walls.
Yeah. But close stalkers, I don't like people in my personal space.
No.
So that's definitely one. Okay, you're going to find this one interesting. Garbage bag weight distribution. Would you like to take a guess on what that is?
No. I'm beyond the broad concept of it. I don't know.
Did you ever hear about the simulation theory?
Simulation theory.
Yeah, that we're all actually in a simulation, kind of like the Matrix, essentially.
Okay.
And that it's kind of like it's not really a game, but it's a simulation, obviously. And there's someone who's playing the character, whether it's someone's playing me, and the only thing that's in the game is really what's in my surroundings, what's on TV, what's on the internet, whatever, or everyone is a person's character in the simulation. Anyway, I think if that is true, I'm not saying it is, and I don't believe it, but someone has programmed my character to not be able to set down a garbage bag without it falling over. If I hold a garbage bag and there's like just random stuff in it and it feels like it's weighted to one side, if I lean it in a certain way against a wall or something like that, where I know it's going to lean up against a wall, it always goes the other way. Every single time.
Really?
I feel like someone's playing with me. Like, it doesn't make logical sense to me how this happens every time. Every time I set down a garbage bag and I think it's going to be stable or lean a certain way, it goes the opposite way.
I have no response to that.
It's so specific.
I can't relate.
I know. I don't understand it. I think someone is playing me as a character and has just thrown in there to piss me off. I don't know any other theory. Like, it's every time.
Or maybe you just suck at physics.
Here's the thing. Even when it's got to the point where I've made the decision, okay, I'm setting it down. I'm like, okay, no, obviously I've been through this enough.
Right.
I'm just going to do the opposite thing. And every time I make that decision, I turn it around, it falls. So if I had made the original decision to put it like, it doesn't matter if I go with my gut or change it up, it always falls. It always tips over. Does anyone else have this problem? I don't know.
That's one thing I've noticed, and this is similar but different. I just finished a semester at university where I'm taking one course per semester, and I just finished that. But I park off campus to try to save money, and for me to buy a parking pass to park on campus is stupid because I'm only there 2 times a week. So I park off campus in a legal parking lot, but then I walk quite a distance to get to the campus and get to my building. What always seems to happen, and my class starts at 1 p.m. and it's done at 2:30 p.m. every day. So I leave my car about 20 to 1, takes me about 15 minutes to walk to the building.
Okay.
The wind is in my face.
Right.
At 2:30 when the class is over, I walk back to my car. The same clouds are in the sky. No front has gone through. But the wind is in my face on the way back. And there's something not right about that.
Yeah, there's something going on there.
Something going on there.
But I mean, you live in PEI, I guess. Yeah. The wind's always blowing.
They say in PEI, one day the wind stopped blowing and everybody fell over.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and my next one. Oh, wow. I actually had it on here. I totally forgot. When people have really loud text or call tones.
Oh, there you go.
I forgot I added it. Yeah, I made this list a week ago. So, okay, number 7, wearing socks around the house. I cannot wear socks inside my own house.
Really?
Drives me nuts.
So what do you do instead? Slippers?
Also, I just need to make sure it's not on here. Also, pants. I don't like wearing pants. I hold the world record for quickest pant taker offer when coming through the door, coming home. I hate the feeling of wearing socks inside. I feel constricted. It almost makes me claustrophobic. And my pants have to come off as well.
Really?
Yeah, I throw on some pajama pants or...
So you wear something, you just don't wear
pants. Shorts.
And what about your feet?
Just not
just
jeans
go barefoot or slippers?
Barefoot all the time.
Really?
99% of the time.
Yeah. I'm very much a sock guy.
That's ludicrous to me.
I have a pair of slippers that I will put on, and I will line everything up. Like when I know that I'll be the first one up in the morning, and I have a routine. Mm-hmm. I do my coffee.
Yeah.
And I go to the couch, not that routine.
Yeah.
That's later. I go to the couch and I, get on the computer. I check my email. But what I do, knowing I'm going to be there, that's my first base of operations in the morning, 7 days a week, and I don't sleep in on weekends. I get up at 6 a.m. pretty well every day.
Yeah.
But I put my slippers or a pair of socks in the living room on the couch so I can put them on right away when I get there. And I have like a sweatshirt and maybe sweatpants that I'll dress up temporarily in the morning until it's time for me to have a shower and then get all ready to go down to work, down being in the basement. And that's my routine. I wear something on my feet all the time.
That actually like low-key stresses me out.
Sometimes I even go to sleep with socks on.
Okay. No. Wait, you sleep with socks on?
Not all the time, but I'm not. Sometimes I'll get into bed and I've got those little ankle socks, right? And I don't even feel them on there. So I'll get into bed and I realize, oh, I got my socks on. Okay, I just leave them on.
That's crazy. I would rather sleep with socks and shoes on than sleep with just socks on.
There's something not right.
Oh, there's lots of wrong with me. Okay, there's no question there.
All right.
Okay, next one. Number 8, people who talk during shows or movies.
Oh.
Now, caveat. We watched a movie the other night, which was a movie that had a lot of questions, and there was a lot of conversation on purpose.
Yeah.
I told you guys to speak up with questions or whatever. It was called Moonfall. Jason and I even made fun of it on the last conversation kind of style video that we made last weekend. But generally, those who talk during movies and like they'll ask, well, we're watching the same show, and they'll ask a question. Who's this guy? Or where does he work? Or whatever. I'm watching the same show as you. I don't know. Like, how am I supposed to know that? Just watch the show. Just watch the movie.
Yeah. It drives me crazy.
Yeah. Let's talk about it afterwards.
Yeah. Well, what we were able to do, of course, we're watching it at our own command. We can pause it.
Yes.
And then talk and then start it again. So that's what we were doing to try to get around that problem.
Yes.
But, yeah, that particular movie, I can go on for days about that movie. But one thing that just gets me, like in a theater, you have no escape route. You have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And there's all these signs on the screen before the movie even starts. Get rid of these things, turn them off, or put them in your pocket. And invariably, you can look around and see the glow, on people's faces that are looking at their phone.
100%, yeah.
And to me, it's disrespectful of everybody that's sitting around you. Frankly, it's disrespectful to the people who made the movie.
Yeah.
Even though they don't know you're doing it. They're sitting back in L.A. somewhere by the poolside.
They probably don't care. But
they probably don't care. But I hate that. Like for me, I don't go to many movies. For me to go to a movie in a theater, especially nowadays, it needs to be a big event.
Right.
For me, like it has to be important enough that I want to see this movie now, and I'm not going to wait till it comes out online or whatever. And I want to enjoy the movie. I'm paying through the nose to go to the darn movie.
That's another reason why people aren't going to the movies recently. Is it costs an arm and a leg. I'm not sure what it is like in the States, but in Canada here, I mean, if you're going to see a general movie, average seat, whatever, average ticket, lowest ticket, and not buying any food, you're probably at least paying $13. If you're buying food, if you're getting a specific seat or something like that, you're spending probably at least $40 to see a movie.
Yeah.
And it's just not worth it.
It isn't. It has to be just unbelievable. Like there's some movies that work on the big screen that just won't work as well on a small screen. True. Avatar would be an example. These, epic, highly visual movies.
Yeah.
And there's a few that I wanted to see. There's one like the Trotsky. I wanted to see that in a theater because it was shot in my high school in Montreal.
That's right, yeah.
I wanted to see it, as big as possible. And I, at that time, didn't have access to it on DVD or, it certainly wasn't featured on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But I wanted to see it. I love the movie, and I've watched it a couple of times now. But, there are times when I want to be in a theater for the movie itself or for, the visual effects or I just want to appreciate, and the surround sound and the Dolby and whatever else. To me, movies are important and special, and people shouldn't frig them up.
I think what even bothers me more than that is talking over music. Like I'll be driving with someone, and they'll have the music cranked pretty good, but then want to talk. Yeah. And my brain just can't do that. Like either we listen to music or we talk. You can have the music low, totally fine. but don't crank the music where you have to literally speak louder over top of the music and have a conversation. My brain just can't handle it. Like I'm just not good at it. So I need focus on one thing or the other. That's probably what bothers me more than talking during shows or movies. Number 9. This is probably a pet peeve of literally every human on the planet. Tangled cords. Oh. I hate tangled cords. That doesn't bother you? When you look in a tote and there's a bunch of cords, this is cords galore here in this household. You go into a tote and you're looking for something, you try and get it out, and you're like, oh, it's wrapped around 1,000 things, and you're fighting, you're trying to get it out. That doesn't bother you?
Well, it's inconvenient.
Drives me nuts.
But I don't walk by a tote full of tangled cords and get upset.
I don't even understand it. Like, I think this kind of goes back to the garbage bag thing. I think someone's messing with me.
Cords tangle themselves.
Cords tangling themselves and pissing me off. And I just, it's like there's never been a moment where I've needed to unplug everything. Like, I brought lots of stuff with me. We got mics here. We got a mixer and stuff. Never fails. Something that I easily plugged in before that I should easily be able to unplug and take with me. No, can't do that. That's wrapped around 4 other cords in the most complicated way possible. How did that happen?
Yeah.
It just always seems to happen to me. So
yeah, they are good at that, at wrapping themselves around each other.
They are, yeah.
As a ham radio guy with cables and wires and cords everywhere, it's pretty hard to avoid that. But I do my best. Like that, there's one behind you that maybe is visible on camera where I've actually, curled it up and tied it off.
That looks good.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of myself because that otherwise would just be laying on the floor.
That's true. There was one point where, if in my computer I've got 6 or 7 hard drives with all the video files and stuff I do for the channel and photography and whatnot. I've got 3 monitors, a keyboard, a mouse, the PC itself, and there's the Ethernet cord and HDMI cable. Like, there's just so many cables and stuff. There was a point where I spent a day doing cable management with zip ties, making sure there was nothing hanging down. I've got a picture of it. I might even post it on this video if I can find it. But you couldn't see, you could see a little bit, but you could barely see any cables whatsoever. It was super clean. Tight. It was amazing. Tight. And it takes so much effort to do that. I've been putting it off, but I'd love to do something like that again. Yeah.
Well, eventually this room is going to be my radio room,
where
we are now. And right now, in my current radio room, which is upstairs, I share an office with your mother. And she would be the first to tell you. She'll probably be watching this video and going, oh, yeah, here we go. Because underneath my desk is literally, like, it's gross.
Can I take a picture of it and show it in the video?
Totally. Go ahead, because you need to prove this point. It's absolutely gross. But my thinking is I'm going to build a wiring closet down here in the corner over there, and then my main radio position will be here just underneath that window, and everything will be suspended up underneath little hangers and things so that you won't see this dangly-wangly wire nest.
Hell yeah.
And it'll actually work better too, because when you get wires in ham radio, you get wires that are wrapped around each other. They actually, if you're putting a lot of RF energy in those wires, they can spread inductively to the wire beside them. And you can I have some RF energy in my room that I haven't conquered yet.
Oh, you need to combat that in the future.
I do, because when I try to tune up, sometimes all my USB connected devices will just go bloop.
You think that's a byproduct of...
Absolutely.
Really?
I know it is.
Wow, that's interesting.
I just need to transmit for half a second, and bloop.
No way.
All my USB devices just disappear off the computer device manager.
That's actually incredibly interesting.
Yeah. And it's a negative outcome for me.
Yeah.
And I've bought RF, chokes and things and kits to try to prevent that from happening. When you see USB cables and they have that little cylinder at each end, that's a ferrite choke that's trying to help prevent that kind of behavior. And I have them all on mine too, but they're not robust enough to handle what I've got going on. So.
Gotcha. Very, very interesting. That's learn something new there. Okay, number 10, my last one. People who park in front of Walmart along the entrance and wait for their wife or husband because they are apparently too lazy to walk an extra 20 steps out the door to the parking lot.
Absolutely.
Drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Please don't be lazy. Just go park. And it's even worse. Like, I understand if it's incredibly busy and you're literally just going in there. I still think it's wrong. But what really drives me nuts is when the parking lot's essentially empty and less than 10 feet away is an empty parking spot where they could park, but yet they're still parked almost right in front of the door, waiting for someone.
Yeah.
And there's certain situations where, maybe an elderly person is coming up with groceries and they need to load in right in the sidewalk. I've seen that, but rarely. Most of the time, it's people who are waiting for a significant other because he or she is lazy.
Yeah. Or if it's Walmart, they're just running into McDonald's.
Yes, that definitely happens.
I have no good things to say about
If no
people who do that.
Yeah.
And it's all part of situational awareness.
Yeah, it goes back to that.
It's part of your convenience versus everybody else's inconvenience.
Yeah.
And it just shows what kind of a selfish SOB you are if you do that.
I've been a passenger in vehicles that have done that, and I've literally started to sweat and stress out because I don't want to be that person. Yeah. I don't want to get in people's way. I want to be courteous to people. And in fact, I want to decrease people's time if I can help someone, like you said earlier, allowing them to go ahead of me because they got less items, or holding the door for them or something. That that's the ideal situation, is to help someone versus hinder them.
Yeah.
So self-awareness. Well, that's my 10.
Okay.
Did you think of any along the way?
Oh, I definitely have.
I feel like you've got some aviation-related ones as far as a passenger and flying and stuff, like crying babies on a plane, or...
Yeah, I guess I do. I hadn't thought of those, but there's a whole bunch. If the crying baby, I know that my name is flagged in the Air Canada seating system.
Yeah, is it?
So that if you see Brent Taylor on the passenger manifest, then you must seat the crying baby no more than 2 rows away.
See? Garbage bag theory.
That's there's no question.
I'm telling you.
And if they can achieve it. One time I was flying back from Calgary to Toronto on the Red Eye, Air Canada. So the Red Eye flight is one that leaves at night and flies through the night and gets in the morning. And I was somehow, because it was a late breaking development, our conference ended early, and my work colleague Johnny M, and I decided to both try to leave early, so we did. And we sweet-talked Air Canada into letting us on the plane kind of at the last minute, but I got a middle seat on an Airbus A320. And I'm in the middle seat, and on the aisle seat literally is this lovely woman with about a 8-month-old, and she's got the baby in her arms because the baby's not big enough to have a seat of his own.
Yeah.
And his face is pointed right at me here, and he went for 6 hours.
No way.
Yeah. And I had noise-canceling headphones and everything. I tried to do everything I could.
I can't even imagine you in that situation because you don't have a great deal of patience like myself.
I don't.
In those situations.
And here I am trying to sleep because when I get into Toronto on this particular day, I'm changing terminals at Pearson to get on a Beach 1900 and fly to Manchester, New Hampshire to go to a radio event. And I was counting on having sleep on the plane so that the next day when my buddies picked me up at the airport and we all went to the radio flea market, I would be somewhat functional for the day. But I wasn't. I mean, I got through the day, but I essentially had maybe 45 minutes sleep in the whole night.
Typically, people with babies don't fly on red eyes.
Or they shouldn't be allowed to, maybe.
Maybe they shouldn't be allowed to.
Yeah.
If I had children and I had a baby and I was going to travel across the country, I'm so worried about that being me and my baby crying, I would literally take more time off work and drive.
Yeah. And babies can't help.
It's not the baby's fault.
It's not the baby's fault because a lot of times, babies don't know how to equalize the pressure in their ears when the plane is going up, or particularly when it's on its way down and the pressure is increasing. So babies have this massive amount of pain with the pressure trying to push air into their head, and the poor things don't know what to do, and they just wail.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't they? And the poor parent is helpless.
Exactly.
It's not like you can talk to an 8-month-old baby and try to yawn.
Yeah.
Try to swallow multiple times. Hold your nose and blow. Like, you can't do that. Yeah. I think airlines need to be a little more discriminate about what kind of passengers they let on certain flights.
And then we were talking about this a little bit earlier because we're talking about empty seats and whatnot, and someone over the certain size limit has to get a seat next to them or whatever. So it's not like the airlines don't think about those types of things and situations. So maybe there should be like a baby tax. If you're flying with a baby, you got to pay more. Or if you're a customer sitting next to a baby, you get a discount.
Well, that would be nice.
Baby discount.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to charge more for the baby, But I love the discount idea.
The discount idea, yeah.
And I'm just lucky that it was only crying and the guy didn't, because it would have been all over me too, right?
Did he?
Oh, he might have. He probably did the number 2.
Train?
He probably laid some streaks down in the old Dighty.
That's a risky thing to do on a plane as well.
Well, it would be. Yeah, it would be.
To pass gas in general.
And it was just, I don't know. I would normally never fly a red eye for that reason. If I'm flying a red eye, I want to be. We're looking at the camera because we heard a noise.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
But it was anything to do with our photography equipment?
No.
Okay. Then we're okay then, right?
I guess so.
Maybe. Ooh. Yeah. But I would avoid it at all costs, just because even if you don't have the crying baby beside you, you're not going to get a good sleep. You're just not.
Yeah. It's tough to sleep on a plane.
It is. One of the reasons I can't sleep on a plane is I'm so excited to be on the plane.
Hell yeah.
I want to press my face up against the window, even if there's nothing out there.
Yeah, it's pitch dark.
Yeah.
But you still got to look.
I might see a flashing light. Figure out where I am.
Or Northern Lights. Who knows?
There, I've seen that. It's beautiful. Yeah. So some of my pet peeves, most of them have to do with media. All the ones you mentioned, with the exception of the socks and stuff, but all the good ones you mentioned. But the media drives me crazy because now with all the technology we have, like you have a lovely sound system here. I have no doubt that when this when this Having a Yak video goes to air, it'll have really good audio quality.
Hopefully, don't. Come on now.
It's got to. It's got to. Now, when we're talking in this room, because there's no insulation really of any kind, we're hearing a bit of an echo. It's a bit tinny in here.
Yeah.
But you'll know what to do to minimize that. But what drives me a little crazy is when I listen to podcasts in particular, and these are things produced by people that have post-production capabilities and all of that, yet they don't care about the quality of the audio. They don't care about the fuzziness, mushiness, and most of all, they don't care about controlling who's talking and who's not talking. And there are some podcasts that I just love the content. I love the people on the podcast, but they talk over each other. And to me, 2 people talking at the same time, I cannot stand that. I will shut it off and I will never listen to the rest of it if it continues. Sometimes people interrupt each other just because they don't know any better, or you've got this delay going on. And I heard it today in one of my meetings. 2 people were trying to speak at the same time, but there's this half-second delay. Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead. Okay, so the guy starts to go ahead, but the other guy starts to go ahead too. And this went on for 20 seconds. Just blah, 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 blah. And I'm just shaking my head because you can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
You just can't. It's just the way it is.
Just the way it is.
But people have to, when it comes to podcasts and people are, in real time and they've got headphones on or whatever, and they're in different parts of the country, but they're all contributing to one show, there has to be a better way to control that. Like we have the luxury of being in person.
Yes.
And not everyone has that. I get that.
In fact, I stopped listening to some podcasts that transitioned to that because for that reason. It's not natural. It's very almost calculated when you speak and stuff, and it's frustrating. I'm in those same meetings, not literally the same meetings, but video meetings, like every day at work, and that happens all the time. And someone's actually commented because in those meetings, I don't talk that much for that reason. There's so many other people talking. I've had people say, "Okay, we haven't heard from Neil yet. Like, Neil, what do you think?" Because I'll just be sitting back waiting or whatever, and then we'll meet in person. We'll kind of have the same similar meeting, and I'm talking about Storm. Like, you're so much more talkative in person. Like, here's why. That's the reason.
Yeah.
It's just I don't want to contribute to that.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I don't. If I'm called upon to say something, I will.
Yep.
If I want to say something and I haven't been called upon, I'll raise my hand.
Yeah.
You can do that in Zoom, and you can do it in Teams. Raise your hand and sit back until someone notices. And if they don't notice that you've raised your hand, you lose. You lose the benefit of my wisdom and intelligence. Go to hell.
Exactly. Good audio is extremely important. And in fact, all the flights and videos that we filmed last night, was that last night?
Last night.
The audio is not great.
Oh, no.
It's not, because I made a crucial mistake. This mixer has an automatic noise cancellation. Like if I stop talking and if you stop talking, there's just silence. There's no hiss. It's just it completely removes the background noise. Well, the program that I use to film their screen and stuff that also does that like digitally or whatever on there. So we had this doing it and the program doing it. So sometimes if I was talking like a little bit low,
You weren't loud enough to trigger the on.
like it. Anyways, and there's also like a bit of crackling too, which I don't understand. I'm not sure where that came from, but honestly, it kind of sounds like we're in the plane because the audio, pilot audio is not great usually.
Yeah.
It kind of does sound like that. So like I made a thing on the first video that I edited there, the Los Angeles one, and you guys will see that Monday if you're watching this video. I put a little note in the screen, sorry for the poor audio, but at the same time, I didn't call this out, but I'm thinking it's really bad audio, but it almost like kind of works at the same time. Well, it's unfortunate because we filmed like 10 videos with the same audio, so it's just like, oh my God.
But I totally agree with you that the audio is most important of anything. Even if it's an audio visual, the audio is far more important than the video quality.
I agree.
And I think Cisco WebEx and Zoom and Skype and these other agencies, they have to decide how much of their data budget they're going to allocate to video and how much of their data budget they're going to allocate to audio. And I think they all get it wrong. They all spend so much time on having this crystal clear HD, 4K video, 1080, whatever, and the audio sounds like this.
Yep.
Or it cuts out altogether, or it's delayed, or it's burpy and warbly and R2D2 sounding, or whatever. And if they would devote more of the data budget to the audio to make it good fidelity, and even if the video is a little fuzzier, I think, certainly I don't speak for the whole world, I would be way happier.
Yeah.
Because I don't really care what someone looks like unless they're showing me something intricate like a map and I need to see something. If it's just a talking head on a news hit, I could care less what they look like. I want to hear what they're saying.
Exactly.
That's where the content is.
That's why I like Discord, because Discord prioritizes audio versus video.
Good for them.
And yeah, you're totally right. And like, for example, I care so much about audio. Like, listen, I just admitted to getting something wrong here, okay? I know that my audio is not the best all the time. And even when it is at its best, it could still be improved upon. But I care so much about it that with this new mixer that was funded by Patreon, actually, like this mixer was completely possible because of you guys. Like, you guys help improve the quality of the channel. So, shout out to you guys. It's got a micro SD slot, a card slot in the back, and I can do multi-track on this. So when we are recording this, it's recording to that SD card as one file from my mic and one file from his mic, and then they kind of puts them together into a multi-track single file, and I can separate that. I can completely delete his mic. Like, if I'm talking and he's talking at the same time, I can totally mute that mic after the fact. So and that's important to me because I want to have good audio for that reason. I think audio is more important than video. I think video is easy, audio is hard, and I struggle with audio. It's hard. I don't know. It's hard.
And I'm amazed when I see that. Like, that has far more capability than when I was in the radio station and I had a mixing board that was that wide and that high with dials and switches all over it. And you could make really good sounding stuff there, but you couldn't do a tenth of what you can do on that when it comes to post-production, recording, playing back, mixing, and all that. When I was in radio, when we wanted to edit something, sometimes we would go from one tape playing to another tape recording, and then we would cue the tape, start them, stop them at the same time. But that was high tech, because what we did before that was we got out the razor blade.
Oh.
We would physically cut the tape where we wanted the edit to be, and we had little pieces of patch tape that would go into the tape, the magnetic tape.
Yeah. We
would splice things together using a razor.
That's actually pretty incredible. That's an art form in a way. I think so. Like,
yeah.
That is like I don't appreciate that because I don't have to deal with that. Anyone under the age of
50 or 60 maybe.
Yeah, like, I don't know, just to think about that, like having to do that just seems crazy. Like like that's so much work, and now it's not even a thought. It's insignificant.
It really is.
It's like the grocery thing, the barcodes.
Yeah, yeah. We've and even now to this day, you'll see people. We're going to film something. We're going to film this. We're going to film that.
Yeah.
And it's a word we use for taking video. We're going to film something. But there's no film in sight.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There's no film anywhere.
Yeah. Now, there are a couple of shows that still produce on film. There's a new show called Euphoria, which I think has 2 seasons. You've probably not watched it.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it.
It's an interesting show. But they filmed that show on film. See what I did there? Like they actually use film. In fact, they use, I think it's like Kodak 35 or Kodak whatever, that doesn't exist anymore. It's all been used. It doesn't exist anymore. They had to get Kodak to reproduce that film specifically for the show. And it looks like visually from a cinematic perspective and stuff and cinematography, it looks so good.
Yeah.
Like just even if you just watch it just for the visuals, like it just has this, you can't replicate film.
You can't. It's analog.
Yes.
Film is analog and everything else is digital. And despite how hard they try, despite how much they can boost the sampling rate and all that, and the decoding and the coding, you can't get analog.
You can get close.
Yeah.
But there's just, I don't even know how to describe it. There's just something about it. I don't know if it's like the grain or because you can replicate that in digital as well. I can't describe it. It's almost, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like it just makes you nostalgic and it's got this like emotion or feeling to it. I don't know. It's good.
Yep, I agree.
But what were we talking about? How did we get onto that?
Pet peeves.
Audio.
Oh, yeah, right, audio, way back. So a couple of other quick things. I know we're getting on in time. A couple of other quick things when it comes to media. I don't like this current trend in the last maybe 10 years, particularly in American broadcasts of news, but it creeps into Canada too, where they use the English language wrongly.
Okay. Oops.
But like sometimes you'll see, they'll say, okay, there's been a big snowstorm out west. We'll throw to our reporter, Al Roker, who's standing by, to tell us about this snowstorm. Snow coming down heavily here now. Crews emerging from the garages and plowing and blowing the snow. Drivers are, and they just use the ing words all the time.
Okay.
And there's actually a name for that. It's called a gerund. So when you take a noun and you add ing to it, it's a gerund. And it's not a verb, though. So you'll see,
okay,
someone will start a sentence. I'll even, like for Twitter, Twitter has its own rules because you only have so many characters.
Yeah.
Thinking about going shopping today. Thinking about going shopping today is a sentence that doesn't have a verb in it.
Interesting. I guess I never really thought about this at all.
Yeah. I'm thinking about going shopping. I am. Am is the verb. Thinking about going shopping doesn't have a verb in it.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but people have forgotten, like that's just one of the basic rules of English. And in my view, if you're a broadcaster, if you're an ordinary person on the street talking to your buddies, speak in whatever kind of English or whatever other language you want and forget the rules. But when you're a broadcaster running on a federal license and you're trying to present yourself as maybe a standard of some kind,
okay,
do it right. It doesn't cost anything to do it right.
That's true, but what if the average listener or the majority of the listeners talk like they do in the street? So wouldn't they be more receptive to similar language?
And they probably are. I think that's a very good angle you're on here because they've done surveys of people, not really asking them what it is they're checking for, but they'll just ask them random questions about which of those two reports they like the best, let's say. One done right and the other done more popular.
Right.
And they, without fail, will prefer the wrongly read, wrongly written newscast.
Maybe it's more casual to them.
It's more casual, and I think it's more action-oriented, and people want to hear action. They want to hear, movement.
Yeah.
And it's a battle I will lose, but it's a hill I will die on.
Yeah, I think you're in the minority there.
I'm quite sure that I am. But it just needs a few people in the minority just to read the Riot Act once in a while, And I've seen news journalists, people who write for a living, and they'll write maybe a 28-word sentence on Twitter or in a news copy, and there is not a verb in that sentence. And every sentence must have a verb, a subject, and an object.
Okay.
The doer, the verb, the doee, or the thing that was done to.
Yep.
The basic rule of English. Most people know the rule, they just can't articulate it, but they know that that's part of proper English. And journalists who practice the craft as part of their job, they I don't know if they forget it or they just do it on purpose to piss me off.
Maybe they just don't have time to think of it. They're so busy in today's world that they just...
Could be.
They just want to get it out there.
But you're never too busy to do it right.
That's a good point.
If you're going to do something, do it right.
That's a very, very good point.
Yeah.
Extremely good point. I will say that, obviously, I follow you on Twitter, and I don't know anyone on Twitter who calls other people out on Twitter more than you. You constantly call people out, and it's usually news-related. This person on this broadcast didn't use the right metric or didn't say whatever. I would say once a week I see you calling someone on Twitter.
I called out a CBC weather gal last week on the morning news. They said, okay, what's the national weather going to be? She went for 42 seconds, which isn't much time, and she did the national weather, but seemed to only mention southern Ontario around the Great Lakes.
Oh, that's convenient.
She didn't mention any other part of Canada. It was all about southern Ontario. Yeah, I roasted her.
The national weather.
The national weather. And there are people who probably think that the entire nation of Canada, or at least that part of it that's important, is in that golden horseshoe area between Hamilton and Toronto.
Ontarioism.
Yeah, but that just, that gets me.
Yeah.
And I've called it like newspaper reporters. There's a thing that you never are supposed to do in a newspaper story.
Okay.
And it's called burying the lead. Lead being spelled L-E-D-E. So you have a headline, and the headline says, man sentenced today for theft of property. And then it'll start the story. You know, John Smith of Baker Street stole property the other day, and he was caught by the cops. He went to court, and he was convicted here, and he did this, and he did that. The story headline says the man was sentenced today, and you have to get down to the 12th paragraph to find out how much the sentence was. That he got 30 days or that he got 6 years or whatever. Like they forget that the story that's attracted people, or the headline has attracted people to read this story, and then you hide the fact that they're looking for way down in the story somewhere. And then there's people who don't know what words mean. You know, that kind of bothers me. There's one particular reporter here on PEI who writes for the local newspaper, and he's often the guy who gets the story about the restaurant that's been shut down by the health department.
Okay.
So-and-so's restaurant was shut down by the health department last week after an inspection that showed they failed to keep their food above a certain height or at a certain temperature, and that the inspector had visited the premise 3 times in the last month. Now, what the inspector actually did is he visited the premises.
Oh.
Not the premise.
Gotcha.
Premise is a word. Premise is an assumption that you go on. Okay, let's talk on the premise that Montreal had a good team this year.
You're right, yeah.
So the premise, is a word. But premise is not the singular of premises. Even one restaurant has premises. But this is a reporter who's been in business probably for 30 years. And I thought, how could he not know that? So then I thought, you know what? Maybe he's been tricked. I went to the Department of Health website itself, where they report these enforcement actions. Premise, all down the website. So what he was doing, because he's probably overworked, he's copying the copy. He's not vetting it, reading it. He's just chucking it in the paper because he's got another story to write or another 10 stories.
100%. That literally happens at my job. Sometimes we write copy for whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. And there's two different kinds of compliment. They're spelled differently. It means 2 different things. It's compliment with an I and compliment with an E, correct?
Yep.
And sometimes that word gets used incorrectly. Listen, it happens. And we don't have time to vet it. It looks good. We're not really looking for that. We're looking for more that it generally makes sense. I'm doing my best to proofread and stuff, other people's work, and they're proofreading mine, and stuff gets missed. But that's incorrect. But we don't have time. We literally don't have time. So I think that person, or maybe not that person specifically, but there's a lot going. I feel like I work way harder now than I did 10 years ago. And not even different jobs, obviously, but just in general, like, I just feel like the average person has so much on their plate that they don't have time to focus and do things maybe 100% correct.
And if you look at, you were in school a lot more recently than I was, but now, with phonics and things, like spell it like it sounds, and don't worry about being perfect. And people writing with just internet abbreviations, whatever those,
Right.
whatever. It has laxified and lazified everybody.
Absolutely.
And they know that they can get their meaning across, even if they know it's not right, because they don't have time or they don't want to spend the time to do it properly. And it's unfortunate. I do think that the language is being dumbed down quickly because of that, and I think we're losing our way.
Like the word of the year in 2021 was vax.
Yeah.
Vaccine.
That's right.
Vax.
Facts. And okay, like it's a word that people are using a lot.
Yeah.
And they're going to pick it as an important word for the year. It certainly was. But I just I long for the good old days when it actually mattered what people, how well people knew the language. And language is a tool. It's like a tool for a carpenter or a welder or an audio engineer. And how well you use that tool says something about your dedication to your job. And if your job is to use the language, then do it right.
I agree.
That's all.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
We are definitely not necessarily less intelligent, but less caring of the craft of words. As we close this off for over an hour here, give me one word that you like, a word that doesn't get used a lot, but you really appreciate.
I love the word obviate.
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 Okay, do you want to define that word for us?
Sure.
Specifically me, who does not know what that means.
Obviate is to essentially change the circumstances to remove the need for something. So
Okay.
it's snowing tonight. I'm going to get my shovel ready. Oh, but in the night, the snow changed to rain, and when I got up in the morning, there was no snow left. That obviated the need for me to use my shovel.
Interesting. Okay. That I learned something new.
There you go.
Never knew that word before. I'm sure there's some people out there who maybe learned that as well. So.
And on my chat with my colleagues at work, they know I'm, a wordy, annoying person. They know that. So every week or so, I will introduce a new word like that into our chat. And one of my colleagues, he will say like, "Okay, what's that one mean?" Or use that in a sentence, and I'll do it just for fun. And we enjoy that kind of thing. Okay. I don't take myself too seriously, although it sounds like I do, but I don't.
All right. Well, I'm going to try and teach you a word. Okay.
Do that.
Do you know what petrichor means?
Petrichor? I don't.
I believe it's spelled Petricor.
Okay. I still don't.
It means the smell of soil after a rainstorm.
Oh, I love that smell.
Yeah, petrichor.
What's the smell of pavement called? Warm summer pavement that's been rained on.
I love that smell, but I don't know.
I wish I knew. And where does it come from? And what chemically is going on there? What's going on there?
Yeah, I agree.
I love that smell.
Yeah.
I used to smell it all the time as a kid because in Montreal we had hot days in the summer. We had heavy rain showers almost every day. And here, the rain is more gradual. It starts and stops more gradually. It doesn't really have that...
And they don't pave here at all.
Beat down.
They just patch.
Yeah, that's true. But I love that smell.
Yeah, that's a good smell.
Yeah, rain on pavement. Yeah. Petrichor. That's a new one.
There you go.
I don't know if I know what the soil smell is as opposed to the other things, but...
What do you mean?
I'm going to try and check that out. I'll be on my hands and knees after the first rain.
Yeah, tearing
your mother will say, "What are you doing out there?" "I'm looking for petrichor."
Well, good luck with that. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Maybe in a future episode, we can talk about our 3 favorite smells or something like that. Or like that's a whole conversation we could get
Let's
into.
go.
Yeah, thanks guys for watching. I appreciate it. This is obviously not typical content on the channel, but it's a callback to maybe some stuff that you used to see on the channel and the previous Post to Post channel as well. So, Dad, I thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time, and we'll obviously do this again, hopefully. Who knows with the regulations and whatnot if I can get back, but next time I come back, maybe we can do another one. If people would like, if they don't, then we won't. But yeah, I hope you guys had fun. Hope you're enjoying your day, and we'll talk to you very soon. Adios.